Awesome, Marin. So excited to have you.
Good
Hi,
to have you,
everyone.
Marin.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
This one has been in the works for a while. It's Marin is like has so much knowledge about SEO and organic, and especially like with AI, that space is changing so fast. So we've been really looking forward to this session. Marin, do you want to like say a few words about yourself and like tell us what you've been working on and what you're doing now?
Sure. I'll give you a quick intro about myself. My name is Marin Perez. I've been doing digital marketing, content marketing roughly 20 years across a wide variety of companies, one-person startups, all the way through to Microsoft. I was a journalist by trade. I was a blogger. As I eventually grew in my career, became a content marketer, overtook paid marketing, email marketing, digital marketing, really broad swath of digital marketing, but always using content as a central plank for a continual storytelling motion. Outside of work, I live in San Diego. I have a 6-year-old who eats up most of my time and energy when I'm not thinking about digital marketing, content marketing, and SEO.
Nice. That's a nice distraction.
Hmm.
So like the content of SEO marketing, right? Do you have core principles of content marketing that you think are essential? It might be good to like set a stage, and especially we have audiences from both large organizations and startups.
Yeah. So there's a couple key things when I think about with content marketing in particular, and we can also talk about SEO as well and how that bleeds into it. I'd say the first thing is don't just do content for the sake of doing content. I've been doing this long enough where you used to have to convince SLT or your leadership team that content was worth doing and worth investing in. Now that buy-in is there, and that's great, but that also means people are just doing content for the sake of it. You have to have some sort of plan and measurement framework in place for why you're doing your content. It's not always going to work. It's kind of like finding product market fit, but you want to make sure that you're doing it somewhat strategically instead of just doing it for the sake of doing it. Secondly, I think you have to have your goals and measurement in mind. This content is going to drive X, Y, and Z because of Y and Z, whether it's audience marketing, brand awareness, driving people through the funnel, retention marketing. Have some idea of what you want your content to do. I also think content is hard and it's getting harder. The tools to make the initial content have expanded a lot, and I hope we can talk about that later. But that also means standing out from the crowd gets harder. Really having relevant, useful, educational, data-informed content is just harder than ever. And then finally, I would strongly encourage everyone to spend just as much time distributing their content as they do creating it. For a lot of people, particularly like me, if you are trained as, as a writer or as a creator, the work itself feels like a project or a product, and you put it out and then you kind of don't worry about it too much. You're on to the next one. But really focusing on that distribution is what is going to make the content impactful across your business metrics.
Can I follow up with something
Yeah.
around the distribution? Like, what are some best practices for distribution?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. It depends on, stage, company, and what type of content you're doing. But what I would encourage, like when you're creating a core piece of content, whether it's a video asset, a downloadable asset, think through where your audience is actually going to get this. So if it's going through SEO, there's going to be some optimizations you're going to do with that. If it's going through email, you want to make sure it's relevant for that channel, for that audience. Same if it's going through these social platforms. You want that distribution to partially inform like the content itself upstream, but then as you're pushing it through these channels, make sure that it's optimized for these channels, relevant to the audience through these channels as well.
Hmm.
So an example of that could be if you are doing, we all B2B SaaS kind of thing, you do state of the union reports on whatever for, metric pools for marketing, AI on there. If you're going to be distributing this through TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. You can build that into the overall content structure itself from the very beginning so that you have a better chance of it resonating across those channels with those audiences.
Oh, interesting. So would you think about let's say you have this big piece of like white paper for like 30
Yeah,
pages and then you say, okay, here are the top 10 takeaways that I want to create shorter videos for.
yep.
Or is it like after? Or are you thinking, well, I know I'm gonna create, 5 pieces of clips and let's work into that plan. How are you thinking about structuring it and when do you actually plan it out?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on team and capabilities, but ideally you're doing both, right? Like from the beginning, you know this core asset is going to be distributed across these things. So if you can already build those short summary clips, right? Your executive summary pieces for it during the creation process, that just makes things a lot easier when you're distributing it moving forward. Now, it's hard organizationally as well, depending on how big your company is. Sometimes the team that makes the white paper isn't the team that shares it on the content side of things. So you can get around that either by heads up briefing on the different teams. But ideally, if you can create all of that at the same time, it just makes it for a much better play on the distribution side. As well as I think better content too, because the content is only good if people actually consume it. And that's what I'm saying of the half of the focus should be on the distribution. Because if you have great content and nobody sees it, it's actually not great content.
Yeah, yeah. Final follow-up on this because like
Sure.
distribution is so important, but like not a lot of people talk a lot about it. What are some of your like favorite channels to distribute? Do you have your top three? And like, or is it like really by audience? And what are some rule of
Yeah.
thumbs around that?
I think it is by audience, like where does your audience mostly hang out? And so broad strokes, though, like I still think SEO is a powerful distribution channel and will continue to be, particularly around your branded terms and very specific things because of the intent-based nature of it. You're literally telling the machine you want something, and it's telling you this is relevant to it. And then, of course, where your audience is for like B2B SaaS, I think there's a big push, of course, on LinkedIn with thought leadership on there, a little bit of X, but go to where your audience is. Like if your audience is on Reddit, if you have your consumer brands that are on TikTok, Instagram, you have to really go towards those distribution ends. And then I still think your owned audience eventually, once you're at that stage, is a powerful distribution channel as well. Your own direct connections through email, if you have an in-app the in-app messaging, that can be a really powerful distribution channel as well.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. I know you've worked at some really amazing companies at Microsoft, Kajabi, and Bolt. Like, maybe give us some examples on how you executed these content marketing campaigns.
Yeah, so one that I'm pretty proud of is when I was at Microsoft. So I joined a startup that was acquired by Microsoft called MileIQ, and it was really interesting. We made a app that tracked your taxes or your mileage for taxes so that you could deduct them at the end of the year. Relatively boring space, but interesting use of new technology, mobile app to track it instead of doing a manual mileage log. And so because we were acquired by Microsoft, we had a lot of nice things like financial backing, stability, but they also didn't really care about what we were doing on the marketing side. We had a separate marketing team. We still operated like the startup that we were before we had been acquired by Microsoft. So on the content marketing side, was able to do the relatively standard inbound organic content marketing play. You target these specific keywords around taxes and mileage, and then you create relevant content. In our case, it was like SEO optimized blogs, and you start ranking for them. People search for those terms. They come to your site. They say, hey, they're pretty good. This is useful information. I'm going to try this product. So we were able to have success there, both in the US. We expanded to the UK and Canada from a product, but also a content marketing position or SEO content play. Again, finding the proper keywords, both on the branded and non-branded side, mapping relevant content, making sure all of our SEO was optimized for it, starting to rank for that. But then we realized that Microsoft as a whole, when they were talking to their small business prospects for Microsoft 365, which is the subscription Word, PowerPoint, Excel, they were only really talking about Microsoft and how our products solve your problems. So I noticed there was a gap in the non-branded keywords in the upper funnel there of meeting small businesses where they were. So an example of that is, on Microsoft's site, they'd say stuff like how to calculate your profit margin using Microsoft Excel, which is great. It's useful, it's relevant to the product. But we found a lot of small businesses were like, what is my profit margin? How do I even calculate it? They were narrowly focused on the branded bottom funnel terms, which is you have to do, but there's this giant universe of keywords on top of that. So I was able to convince this org to let me launch a global content marketing program that eventually went live in 38 languages, 59 markets, that was focused on these non-branded keywords, meeting the small business owners where they were in their journeys, helping them solve problems to solve their business that eventually got to the Microsoft solution for it, but we were really trying to address them higher up in the funnel. And this wasn't rocket science. This is probably six years ago. It wasn't rocket science back then, right? Like inbound marketing, HubSpot had been doing it 15 years, 10 years at that point. But for me, the key was really getting that executive buy-in here at a highly matrixed org like Microsoft that I'm really proud of, because it was a mindset shift for them to, hey, not just talk about our products exclusively, to actually mention things like Zoom in some of this content, because that's what the audience understands in the competitive landscape. So that one drove millions of page views eventually. Again, it was launched globally. It added millions to our ARR from the Microsoft 365 side. So really, really happy with the outcome there.
Marin, can I also have some follow-ups on this one?
Yeah,
This is so fascinating. So,
sure.
um, I agree with you that the top of like the inbound marketing is not new,
Yeah.
but it is still is a challenge in a lot of organizations because of the measurement, the success metrics, and the tracking is so hard as when it comes to the top of funnel content.
Mhm.
What were the success metric for these top of funnel type of content, and what was the conversion window? And like, did you have to almost like set a multi-touch attribution model, or working with performance marketing team to retarget these people? Tell us a little bit more about like how you actually, make the top of funnel content work.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, this one was for the Microsoft 365 subscription. So it was a shorter attribution window. You're basically going to sign up or you're not within 30 days on there. So in terms of success metrics, initially it was geared around overall traffic increases, and then it moved towards revenue in terms of signups for ARR, and working with other teams to also determine the value of, because it wasn't just conversion elements all the time. There's also download this other white paper for another product. So we're starting to build that infrastructure with other teams there as well to better understand what the value of like downloading that PDF or the CRM solution would lead to eventually. But short term, it was overall consumption, traffic, direct conversions on there, which is pretty easy to do. How many people clicked and signed up, and then working midterm and long term with the lifecycle team as well to re-engage people who did give us their email but didn't sign up, as well as with other stakeholders on the longer term value for things like a white paper for CRM. Um, I left there before those other those other things were able to get fully implemented on there. But I think you're definitely right, and that's how you should think about it over the long term. Like, of course, focus on direct revenue and conversion, but particularly if you have more expensive, higher touch or products that take multiple touch points on there, you just have to work collaboratively to better understand and articulate that top of the funnel value.
Sometimes I get questions from executives, especially who's not super familiar with marketing, and they want to have keyword level insights. It says, oh, like this keyword, how much revenue is it driving? Which is kind of hard. You can track on
Yeah.
page level, but like a keyword level is kind of hard. How are you actually like answering these type of questions on like the limitation on tracking?
Yeah, I mean, so I remember when Google used to tell you this in Google Analytics, and it was great. You used to be able to do that. So it's I mean, you can do a combination of like SEMrush, Ahrefs, and then use if you are doing paid on non-branded, they'll give you some insights into there. But it is going to be hard. Like it is directional, and you have to set those expectations accordingly early, as well as set the expectations that with a lot of content marketing, it's not going to be, particularly non-branded side, it's not going to be, oh, I want to learn about an AI writing solution. Oh, I'm reading this article about how to use it. Now I'm going to buy. Like it's still going to take multiple touch points on there. So I try to set those expectations early. Like, yes, we want to scoop up all of those bottom funnel, really high intent, non-branded. Make sure we are CRO and conversion rating the hell out of them, but set the expectations that it just doesn't work that way all the time. Like people need this touch point to get education on it, and they may or may not come back due to other marketing touch points as well.
It's great that you mentioned this because like we run into these like attribution question
Sure.
all the time. And like one thing is, oh yeah, like you give credits to every touch point equally. Other times you have like first touch, last touch. Like how have you been solving that question of like did this top of funnel content or that page actually worked and driving impact?
Yeah, I mean this always this eternal challenge for content people in particular, because you of course want to have that attribution be a lot, right? So for the things that are very binary, if they did convert or did they not on that page, like sure, you have that, and that's always going to be that small point. And then you just have to work with your stakeholders throughout the rest of the org to better understand how much this actually moves the needle for this audience. Once you have large enough cohort and segments of users and you have enough data on there for a lot of early stages or even later stages, like it's hard. Like, and I don't know the answer a lot of time, but what I can do is get to a place where you feel comfortable and in agreement with your other stakeholders, set those, and then just like work towards them. And then if you have to iterate over time, like you're never going to get attribution right on your first 1 to 5 times. Even then, I'd argue like it shifts all the time. So just build something that you are comfortable with, and then just continue to iterate from there.
Yeah, were you primarily just leveraging cookies to track or
Yeah, we'd have cookies there at Microsoft, and then what do we use? Adobe. We use Adobe. I forgot what else we did there. It was a little while ago now.
yeah. It's like what we found is like because of the all the cookie blockers that you get like a less and less
Well, yeah.
ability, which makes things worse, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're bringing up a great point in terms of just like overall attribution is getting harder. And, we always can and should strive to have as rigorous and as like scientifically or data backed attribution as we can. But we also have to understand the constraints that are real. There's giving us less and less information, and we just have to continue to push forward with the best information we have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for entertaining my follow-up.
Of
One last
course.
follow-up is any like organization that you work with, you have to deal with international SEO. That's like
Yeah.
a really
So
interesting topic.
yeah, that was the same at Microsoft where, or that same example for Business Insights and Idea, which was the content hub we created. We went live in 38 languages, and this was a huge lift. Realistically, it was mostly like a translation agency that I worked with there to actually get the content. And then we had international site managers there who I partnered with to help make sure that the content was well, really got them into the flow to understand where this is coming, when new content is coming from, how we're ranking across all of these sites. It was a very interesting experience. Typical of the time and of the company, we kind of just throw money at the problem. Like, you have budget, you hire a local agency, do it. That's great. Get another agency that'll help you with the SEO. And it's like, cool. What's interesting now is there's so many like AI solutions where you can probably cut that low budget by 10x. And you're probably still at about 90 to 95% effectiveness on there. There's still going to be challenges in terms of international SEO and tracking, but it's a similar sort of insights that you're looking at in the US. You just apply them to the different regions. And if you do have local experts on the market and the industry, it always helps there, of course.
Yeah, yeah. How much did you have to customize based on local search terms versus translation?
We What was the rough percentage? So we would do the research primarily in English, and then when there were gaps across certain geos, we'd also do the research in those geos. I don't speak a lot of those geos, so I'd have to lean on those SEO experts there. So I'd say that, let's call it like 80% of the challenges of small business owners who we were going after there, it's more like digital forward, cash flow issues. Those are pretty much the same. But then there are regional specific stuff, let's call that about 20%, that we had to customize per each region.
Yeah, yeah. And then in those situations, you work with local agencies
Yeah,
to
and that one we worked with both a localization and then a local SEO,
Yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
well as our international site managers who are team members of Microsoft, who could, also give you some regional insights and actions into what is this data actually telling you? Because you can pull stuff from SEMrush, but if you don't actually know what it means, it's harder to action on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, can I dig in?
Yeah.
Like yeah, you mentioned about execution, right? There's a planning, there's execution. It's always right easier said than done, especially in the global context. I actually one of the company I ran into is that they're not that big as a Microsoft. They're already, let's say, 100 people, but they have a very global reach, right? As you said, you got a content in the centralized produce, and you got to distribute in social media, right? The ads, and for that company, they do have a distributed team across countries, and they
Mhm.
have a multiple languages. One of the pinpoint is that they often find all the contents are disconnected, right? Let's say, hey, if I could see an ad in somewhere or a post in somewhere quoting a number that's probably a couple months too old, right? Given their speed is at a different level. So how do you what method, right? What tool do you use to making sure, hey, as a centralized content strategy person, everyone follows?
Yeah, so from a tooling perspective there, it was mostly like internal Microsoft stuff as like SharePoint, kind of boring planner, nothing too crazy. I think what I'm thinking is that the challenge, th there are going to be challenges. Like I was lucky there in that we had a ton of resources. So that like always helps solve a lot of the problems. So yes, I can be the central hub if I have like an agency here, an agency here, international site managers here. There's still like planning and logistical challenges, but now money and resources solves a lot of problems. Now, prior to that, when it was just me and one other person, I was managing the US, UK, and Canada functions. We had some freelancer help. It was version control was not that hard. It was all in English. I I think it's just always going to be somewhat of a challenge, and that's why I typically prefer like incremental growth, where you're not trying to be everywhere and everything to everyone before you can get your shit together across like 3 geos. And I know that that's hard because you want to go as far and as wide as you can as quickly as possible to see what sticks and what's hard. And I totally understand and appreciate that approach. But if that's the approach you're going to take of going wide, you are just going to have to deal with some of the gaps and figure it out as you go. I know that's not a great answer, but that's probably what I have right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes
And I
sense.
think like the prioritization is also like very hard because you can always say, okay, we're gonna, continue to develop English content. There's always, room to grow more, or we can, go after Spanish speaking market. And hopefully, yeah. So it's like, yes, you can look at your existing user composition to say, oh yeah, it's actually, like direct traffic, 30% coming from Spanish speaking countries. Maybe we should do it. But like how are you actually doing that prioritization and what data do you
Yeah. For me, it should be just aligned with the overall business. If your digital marketing lead, your content marketing lead, or even your marketing lead is dictating where you're expanding to, there's probably some problems there, right? Like they can or should inform, right? And then say, hey, we're getting these pops from these geos, or we are getting these leads from these geos. Like maybe we need to go there, but it's for me the best content and SEO strategy is tightly aligned with the rest of the business. Like again, it's the desire in SEO in particular is to go as far as wide as possible. Like get to 100,000 views per month, convert 1%, continue to grow, and you just keep getting more and more. And that's great. That can work. But I think a much stronger approach, particularly now in the age of like AI abundance slop, is a tightly aligned content and SEO vision with the rest of the business. So an example, I was working with a company that sells used car online. And so, of course, they want to go after keywords that are like how to sell your car online, sell your car online quickly. And they should. And they probably, and they're going to. But, that's a brutal space, right? There's like Carvana, there's CarMax, there's BBB, there's companies who have great SEO teams who've been doing it for 20 plus years. And, my advice to them is, hey, here are some other more targeted keywords with what you guys are good at. It's more around getting more value out of it, or it's like some of the keywords were, can you sell your deceased parent's car? And it has a fraction of the actual keyword volume of sell your car online, but it's a much higher intent audience that has a much lower keyword difficulty score. So the chances of them actually ranking for that, starting to build value, get revenue from it, while also building out their larger SEO domain authority around selling cars, for me, that was a no-brainer to guide them towards that, where it's what is your business actually good at? Where can you deliver value? And then think about that from the content and the SEO perspective and prioritization and connecting it to the internationalization. Like, if the business decides for various, hopefully good reasons, that they're going into these markets, I think the keyword SEO data, digital marketing data should help inform that. I often don't think it should lead though, unless you have a really, really, really killer insight that no one else has seen.
Yeah, yeah. That's such a great point on competitive keywords where everyone is going after, but going like as a new or smaller player, go to the longer tail keywords and specific pain points and questions people are trying to solve.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
does
And
that
sorry, yeah, building on that, when I talk about your SEO and content strategy should be aligned with your overall business, that means like what your business is good at. So when we were at Microsoft, like you have this incredible domain authority, like it's 99, like it is. So we can go after every single keyword by and large and have like an actual decent chance at ranking for it just because there's so much authority tied up to it around so many different verticals. Like that's not going to be the case for most other businesses. And so you shouldn't approach it like Microsoft does, but I think you can still do things that make sense for your business and can deliver value in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have example of like smaller business or like a medium-sized businesses where you actually use a little bit of a different content strategy?
Yeah, so for the last 16 months or so, I've been working as a senior director at Pie Insurance. We do commercial insurance for small businesses across workers' comp, auto. And this is where we're not just going this broad keyword approach across everything in insurance or workers' comp blank for a couple of reasons. Number one, we have compliance teams. So there's this content we can't do that we can't write that potentially I would if I were, if we weren't selling insurance. So we target like lower volume keywords that are relevant to our target audience to get them into our flow. And we're not trying to convert them all of the time there because most of our business now comes through our agency base. And so this is more of an educational and augmentation play versus a growing traffic to grow conversion rate to grow revenue play there. So that's the most recent example because that's what I've been working on mostly.
Yeah. The regulatory industries are like a whole beast.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I assume you probably like been using a lot of AI tools to do like a content and like SEO and such. What are some of the new trends or tools or tactics you've been using?
Yeah. So when I was at Bolt, it was great. So it built a content team of five, I think. And then, we were churning out so much awesome content, case studies, SEO work, newsletters, anything we needed. Great rhythm. 2021, everything's riding high, as y'all remember. Then 2022, unfortunately, we had some revs. So our team got cut. It was me and one other person, and we still had to hit all of these content production goals in order to hit our other goals. This is also right after, a couple months after OpenAI released ChatGPT, and we just started using it for me out of interest, but also desperation. Like I needed more capacity. We didn't have more budget. So it wasn't perfect, but was able to start using things like Jasper and Writer initially to spin up content programs at Bolt where we were able to produce about 80% of what we were using or what we were producing before with like much reduced capacity and much less cost. And the quality was still good because we moved from, at that point I was more of an editor and managing editor versus like actual content creator, but we were moving from content creators towards editors. How can we add value, our unique data, our unique selling proposition, our unique value to the first round content that we're doing? So, what's cool too, and so I did this at Bolt. We've done this here at Pie Insurance. And what's really interesting is that all this stuff is changing so fast. So you used to have to either use Jasper or Writer, then put it, map it to your SEM key rush terms. And now SEMrush has it built into their platform. So we're able to use that for our first drafts a lot. For video editing, Descript, it's great. We're using Midjourney for image creation. A lot of things have changed really quickly. And tying it back to my Bolt story, it's now changed how I think about how you actually build content teams. Um, Before, a key bottleneck was always capacity on there, and also video and visual content capacity. It was just hard to scale, and it was always going to be expensive. And now I think you can have a team of, let's call it like 4, that is delivering super high quality video, visual, text content at the caliber of maybe like HubSpot level style stuff and volume, with a small team of 4 right now. And so that's super exciting to me. But I still mostly use ChatGPT, Midjourney. I play around with a lot of things, but those are the ones that are mostly in my day-to-day flow.
Hot take on Jasper versus Writer versus other AI writing tools. Versus I think like recently, like folks say like Air Ops was another one. Yeah, like hot takes on AI SEO tools.
I don't think any standalone tool is really going to make it. So we were using one tool for it, which I won't name, but then because we no longer use them, and
Right,
because it
right.
was just built into SEMrush, and so that's already where we're going to be doing our keyword research, and they've brilliantly incorporated their AI tools to like mind mapping, and then it's like a very natural conversion to say, this is your keyword list, click a button, here's that first draft for you on there. So I think the standalone, particularly text-based ones, are going to be in a lot of trouble. The tools that already have established workflows are probably going to win. So something like Canva, right? Canva is amazing for visual, and they've also just seamlessly incorporated a lot of the AI tools across both the visual, video, and text stuff there. So I think I don't think those ones are going to last a long time, to be honest with you.
So no, none of them, right?
I don't think, but
Or maybe all if they can break through the workflow potentially. That's where the integration will work out. Uh, I do have a follow-up. Right? Holly, do you want anything
No, go
else
ahead.
on this? Okay. So Mary, when you said about a small team of 4, right, can deliver very high quality content. So I'm laughing because 4 to many companies is huge, right?
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Actually, this is where maybe let's say a few companies I run into, they're just getting started, or maybe they're very at the very beginning, or maybe they have done a little bit, right? For them, I'm curious of your take on what's your advice on their first couple months, right, or a year or so, because often they face a few different passes. Passes one is, hey, the founding team will take on it because they cannot delegate the content and the messaging to other people good enough, so they learn how to do it. At some point, they can't, right? So that's one pass, and they may get some help. They may get fractional help. They may get advisor help, right, along the way. So that's one way. And the other way is many founders are coming from a highly technical background. This is just not their strength, or it could be even be opposite of their strengths, right? So
Mm.
in that case, many are actually have a very good self-awareness, considering, hey, I'm gonna scale, right? Now my product need to meet with customer. So the first person I'm going to hire is going to be a content marketer, right? But how to do that, right? Who to hire, what kind of profile, right? What kind of seniority often confuses them. So I definitely see a lot of churns, a lot of confusion. So we'd love to hear your take, right? How would the little bit of earlier stage founders deal with this challenge?
Yeah, and to be clear, when I'm saying team of 4, I mean that's for like really late stage, almost even public wise, like teams that now were, 10 plus or 30 plus in the previous regimes. That's what I mean, that sort of contraction. To your question, I think you need one person who has demonstrated experience creating great content that moves the needle for the business across at least one channel. It can be their personal brand on there, or it can be for a business itself. In terms of the seniority. That's it depends. Like I'm biased because I'm senior, so like sure, of course, always hire someone who has a little bit of gray in there. But there's it depends on what this, I guess, like what the audience is too. But ultimately, I do think content will continue to be even more powerful as a driver across all marketing channels. Um, it's the fuel for your thought leadership. It's the fuel for your social. It's a fuel for your demand gen as well. It is a way to connect with your either prospects or your existing audience before they're ready to buy. And it's just not going to go away. And so it is something that is core. I yeah, I'm still struggling to think about like exact level of seniority, but one thing that they can do is potentially do like small contracts, right? Like a work like a small project on content. Does this person make sense to work with you? If they're going to be your ghostwriter, like, of course, if they're going to produce that content for you, what is their content strategy? What is their plan? And can they actually do something for that? And you should be able to know that in about a week or two, whether they can do it. Now, there's always going to be other things to learn in terms of specific channels, in terms of specific audiences, the rhythm of your business and that stuff. But from can they produce good content? Yes or no, you should be able to learn that pretty quickly.
Got it. Makes sense. So yeah, very quickly. So I agree with you. The content, especially as the competition, right, is heated up. The content is becoming even more crucial to take the center stage. But sounds like there is a still potentially opportunity to round up the playbook, right? As you said, there are
Yeah.
different company can tackle this in different ways, and what one consider feasible might not be right manageable to other person. Like you said, hey, it probably take you a week to know who is a good writer, but in other cases, there might be so many agency or freelancers to choose from, right? Not necessarily everyone might have the skill sets, right, to know who to work with. So
Yeah, and it also depends on the type of business, right? Like if you're a seed and it's hard tech or it's infra, like of course you're gonna look for a different skill set than someone who's like great at Instagram Reels necessarily. Like you want to make sure that they can create the kind of content that resonates with your specific audience, or at least if you're still searching for product market fit, the types of audience that you want. And they're like people are complex, everyone contains multitudes, but by and large, you kind of know which channels are resonant with which types of audiences, and you can kind of work backwards from there to find out the content people who would makes the most sense for you.
makes sense. Makes sense. All right. All
Related
good.
to
Thank
this, right? Yeah, like what Bay asked about, like how do you actually figure out what like a contractor or agency to work with? Of course, you can ask for referrals and case studies, and you can do test projects. I'm curious on like what are some pitfalls or mistakes you should pay attention to when working with agencies and contractors. Any other pointers in choosing the right agency or contractor to work with?
Yeah, so for me, it's very, if you're talking content in particular, it's very clear. Like they have to be able to articulate how their previous content work connects to business value, right? There's a lot of people who can do great content that's beautiful and it doesn't move the needle for the business in any way. It's good. It's what I call like portfolio marketers. Like they're great and they're probably want to do, content for a living. They probably want to make movies or something, and that's good. That's good. But you need to choose someone who has demonstrated that they can tie their content to business value over a certain period of time. Like things take a long time. It's not as simple as this content, one content in leads to X dollars out all the time. But that's number one. They need to be able to make that case to you clearly and easily. Number two is the quality and caliber of the content, which is more subjective. So that is one where it's kind of a vibe with you. So if you know that they can drive business value and you as either the founder or the executive, then it's like, is this what we want for our brand, the type of content? And then if it's seed stage early, like, maybe they don't give a shit about brand, but eventually you will start to care about that because that also starts to drive business value from there. And then the third one, if we're talking about sort of SEO in general, beware of people who overpromise. If anyone can guarantee you that they'll get you ranked number one for certain keywords, just walk away. It's not really possible. And if they could do it, they would not be agents. They would not have an agency. They would be retired on a beach somewhere because that is some of the most valuable real estate in the digital world. So.
One challenge I run into is a lot of the SEO agencies, they were great in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And then sort of the value started to slow down and either the team change or like maybe the tactics get old. Like, have you seen that in places, and how do you avoid that?
Yeah, it is a challenge. So in an ideal world, if you have in-house, then they're more incentivized to be with the business and continue to grow and adapt to the ever-changing SEO world. And it has changed a lot. It has changed more in the last 3 years than it probably did in the last 10 years before that. So, a lot of these agencies by definition, or not by definition, but typically like they have their package. They have the things they do. They're good at getting clients. They do it. It potentially works, but a lot of them are not super incentivized to then continue to improve their skills or build upon their playbook. So I think in-house is my preference, but I understand that that is not always available. And so it is just keeping a or making sure that your agency is working hard, very civilly, but they're the experts. Let them run their initial playbook, have that work, and then it's keeping on them quarter after quarter. Okay, what's next? Like, how are we adjusting to these updates here? So I'm sure y'all search and you see all the AI updates now. It's like, what is your strategy on there? Most good agencies will have that in the pitch nowadays, but then what happens in 2 quarters from now when there's other updates? So if it's just like any agency, if you let them coast, they will coast. So it's incumbent upon you to like ensure that they are continuing to push because they, quite frankly, they have to. It is continually changing. The old playbooks kind of work right now, but to your point, Holly, they work for a limited amount of time and then an algo change happens. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do now? And like a lot of them just don't have a great answer for that.
Yeah, so true. And you mentioned like, the AI want to like dive a little bit deeper in it.
Yep.
One of the key challenges some of my clients ran into is like, okay, the click-through rate for organic traffic has been just slowly going down. The
Yeah.
traffic, like just not only traffic, but also click-through rate. So how can companies face the challenge of, oh, well, a lot of people are not clicking on,
Yeah.
Google link anymore?
Yeah. So this is true. The rate of click-throughs is continuing to drop, and it will continue to drop with the AI summaries. We saw this starting with the featured snippets. People are freaking out. There's Amanda over at SparkToro has pushed this idea of zero-click content, where you're still going to create content to rank in those search boxes or across social or across the AI summaries, but you have to also adjust your expectations for what it's going to do in terms of like not in every single vertical in every case, but the days of that click through to your site, they're gonna be gone. Like it really is. And so you still have there's still value in there because when people with high intent eventually they're going to want to click through. If they're looking for like brief, non-branded educational information on some high level stuff, like, yeah, an AI can and probably should deliver that information to them instead of making them click through to know like what time the Super Bowl is or, what is content marketing. I think when you get to those deeper layers of either education, product challenges, comparison sheets, that's still going to have a click through. So you just have to adjust your expectations at that upper funnel. Know that some of your content strategy is going to go towards that zero click world that you won't be able to attribute, and then still double down on that like mid funnel, bottom funnel, delivering more value and content, and making sure that you can distribute those across your other channels, particularly your own channels, so that you can bypass some of the algorithms on there. But it's just a different world, unfortunately, moving forward. SEO is still going to be very powerful, particularly for branded. Like your branded terms are still gonna, I hope, still gonna be that number one result, and they're still gonna want to click through. But Google wants to take as much time and attention and margin as they can, and that is just something you're gonna have to expect and build into your expectations moving forward.
Are there any tactics you would deploy to optimize for being part of that AI summary source, or being in the ChatGPT result where it's like showing the source?
Yeah, the best I've seen lately is it's similar to the featured snippet results. Like what you're doing to try to get there is similar to how at least Google is surfacing it. ChatGPT, Perplexity, there's still, I don't have great answers on that one yet, but it's still about delivering clear, concise value with your writing in a way that if it could show up in that featured snippet, it probably should still be relevant in that AI summary. I think there also is going to be there's already some industry pushback, and they'll get better at, they already provide a little bit of the citations on there. But for now, that's the best advice I have. And I'm still continuing to work on it like every day, to be honest.
Yeah. Not only one, but like a few founders asked me, now that AI is disrupting SEO so much, should we still work on SEO? What would be your answer?
Yeah, well, I'd say yes, particularly for your branded search terms. If you're not showing up number one for your brand on Google, that's like you're giving up a lot of free money, because this is going to be the highest intent, or the most likely the highest intent audience that you are ever going to see, because they're literally searching for you. So for sure, make sure you are investing in your SEO from your branded terms. I'll do all the simple or not simple, but the foundational stuff. Make sure your title tags, your meta tags, your website is properly adjusted to Google page speed. Make sure you're doing all of the technical stuff that you need to do to make sure that they want to rank your site. And that is also going to be this catch-all net for all of the activity you're doing. If you run a TV ad or a connected TV ad, or even in person, just networking, word of mouth, a lot of that's still going to filter through to Google, and you want to be at that top one. So that, I think, is very clearly still going to be resonant, still going to deliver business value today, tomorrow, 5 years from now. Now, when you're talking about the old inbound marketing, non-branded keywords, creating text for that to map to that and push down, I think a lot of that's going to go away. And I think the part that's going away is the low value. If AI slop can create content that's as good as the content you are creating for some of those high funnel keywords, then maybe that content wasn't good enough. But what it can't do, or it, at least in the near future, is deliver real insights from real people, deliver real data, exclusive data that you're creating, have your unique selling proposition, have your unique customers telling their stories to really resonate with that audience. And so that would be the bull case for still non-branded SEO as well. And it's not going away tomorrow too. There's still going to be a lot of value to be had over the next couple of years, from like an organic traffic perspective, from a lead gen perspective on there.
Final question. Right? So like SEO, there's a lot of foundational stuff that a lot of people are already using. For a more sophisticated org or more mature org, they've done the foundational stuff. The tech is good, content marketing, they've been doing it for a while. But then, like SEO growth has been just slowing down. What would be your advice for them?
I would connect it to what I talked about before. Like growth has to be aligned with your overall business objectives. Like, are they trying to grow organic traffic and SEO because they need to grow higher than last year's to look good? Or can they tie their growth to like business metrics, ideally revenue or like lead gens from there? So if you're just looking for top line SEO growth, like it is going to plateau at a certain point. Like you run out of keywords that are going to make sense. There are going to be better competitors for them. I'd say for them is stop thinking about growth purely from that top line keyword ranking, organic search perspective, and really start thinking about like, how is your organic search and SEO driving real business value through sales, through retention, through lead gen, across all of those other more important business metrics.
Awesome. Bei, do you have
So
more?
yeah, but also wrapping up, but to echo your questions, right? Basically, what I hear is, well, it's a holistic growth, right? You can rely on one channel to go never stop,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of multi-leg, uh, and one peg on top of each other situation. So, right.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like I've seen a lot of people think of either content or SEO as these like
Mm,
silos and channels, and it's
yeah,
it's just not like that, compared to like these paid
right.
channels where it
Mm,
is literally dollars in, dollars out,
yeah,
and it should be.
yeah.
These ones are also these wider nets that capture a lot of the other work on there too.
Mm,
That you're
yeah,
doing not only as marketing, but
yeah.
sales, customer success, word of mouth, product as well,
Uh,
that helps to capture this in the just online universe.
yeah, definitely. So one of the things I found very helpful was, let's say, some of the Grammarly journey told me that when SEO took different shapes, right? Or the content took a different shape, and every time it is really the deeper segmentation, right? Or the product marketing somehow find a way to take a crack in certain markets we didn't know that can do so well, and then SEO or paid ads can kind of follow. So it's definitely an integrated effort. So. Uh, but last question, and thanks so much, Marin. This is very helpful. So last question is, I see a trend, right? People are just I think most of people agree with what you said, right? The content is so critical. So actually, many people are trying to learn the content in a systematic way, whichever background they're coming from, right? It could be the technical founders who realize they just have to do it, or it could be the funding marketers, right? Who tend to be a performance or performance-based marketer, right? Who also want to take on the content because of budget, right? Because of other reasons. Do you have any recommendation for the ones who want to learn more? Do you have any recommendations on resources or websites or right videos? So they or me, I personally want to learn that too. So anyone want to take it on and extend right their expertise along the lines of that direction.
Yeah. Trying to think through what are some I have my feet like I just look at my socials. Obviously, like my X and my LinkedIn have now been curated for this. A company that I've advised for, they're called Audience Plus. They also do a great job at uh, teaching B2B SaaS primarily businesses on how to build like impactful content across, for those types of audiences. Amanda over at SparkToro, who I've mentioned before, has been a really, really impactful leader for me. I don't even know her. I just read her stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, this is a lot of good stuff there. But other than that, nothing specific that calls out to me.
Got it, got it. So basically, the content marketing tools tend to generate decent right guides on those. Oh,
Yeah, I mean, you
okay.
can go down the
Mhm.
rabbit holes across
Yeah,
the social journeys, and that's or across
yeah.
social media, whether it's Reddit, whether it's YouTube. That's a beautiful thing, and a lot of this content is actually pretty good. I
Yeah.
I struggle to find specific ones just because I see a lot
Yeah.
of it. There's a lot of good,
True.
and it's
Okay.
about like distilling that
True.
information and actually doing it. So there's all the
Yeah.
information's out there. It's not a secret. You just have
Right.
to just Google it and then
Yeah.
actually do it. That's the harder part is the doing it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the work.
Practice. Yeah. Practice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, get the reps in.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Cool. That
Yeah,
is,
amazing,
that is,
Marin.
yeah. Thank you. Thanks so
Thank you
much.
so
Yeah, of
much.
course. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. All right. Cool. Well, I wish you have a great day. All right. See you. See you, Mary.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.